I'd like to call the Lake Ripley Management District Board of Directors meeting to order. It's May 17th, 2025, 9 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Roll call. All members are present. Is there any public comment today? Nothing, Johnny? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move right into approval of the minutes of the April 19th meeting. Please take a moment to review.
I think there might be a misspelling under new business section 8A.
Okay, hold on here. Let's get there. New business A.
And I'm not sure.
We're at.
The very first, the name, is it Dean Schneider? Is that supposed to be Deanna?
Deanne is her name.
Oh, so that is right.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I've read through them already, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 19th meeting.
Okay, Steve's made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Meg seconded. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Debbie Coots.
Okay, so this is for the 1 month period ending 4/30/25. The receipts were $7,370.76, of which $1,656 was the reimbursement from Enbridge for the water testing, and the remainder was the April tax settlement from the Village of Cambridge and the Town of Oakland. Disbursements were $15,362.88, as provided on the following. Petty cash is up because Leanna has been selling some turtle signs, and so, but this will be the last time you're going to see petty cash on here, because after some discussion, Leanna and I have decided it's not necessary anymore to have petty cash. It just sits there and sits there. Mm-hmm. And so we've been kind of testing it to see, and she feels it's not necessary. So I have since the end of April taken that money and deposited it in the checking account. So I don't know if you have any questions about that. But so the checking account balance at the end of April was $225,941.44, and then we have the 2 CDs. I don't know if there's any questions about any of the bills. Because the workman's comp came down to the 1019 from where we were, I quickly paid it. So, you know, as you go to look at what we budgeted, although it's probably going to go up. It always goes up some when we turn in information later, but this is really where it should have been compared to, you know, it took us a year to get here, I guess, but at least we're here. And the only thing on the Visa bill was there was a little higher expenditures for training seminars because of Stevens Point and then the weed harvesters going for training. And we had that flow meter repair that Leanna talked about in 695. Otherwise, the rest of the stuff is pretty basic. I don't know if there's any questions?
Quick Trip, is this the normal gas?
Yep, it goes between all of the vehicles.
Yep.
And I think some of that probably included the mileage to Stevens Point, you know, filling up the truck. Mm-hmm. So, but the nice thing about the Quick Trip is that we get the discount monthly. Mm-hmm. So I think that's pretty much it for April.
Okay.
The rest of the stuff we'll be talking about later. So.
Okay. Any questions for Debbie on the financials? Anybody have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the report as presented.
So moved. Do so.
Okay. I heard Laura first. Is there a second? Okay, Georgia. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay. Thanks, Debbie. Did you want to review this at all? Or
well, I don't know if you want to talk about it when we get to the budget stuff, because that's what I kind of gave it to you for.
Sure, we can do that. Yep, sounds good.
Just to...
Okay, we'll move on to reports. Town of Oakland Representative Laura Payne.
Morning.
Morning, Laura.
I have a little bit of an update about Enbridge. Leanne will do some of it as well. I was able to speak with Caroline Rice yesterday to get the most updated information. The GEI consultants for Enbridge submitted their site investigation work plan addendum addressing WDNR's comments. They submitted that on 5/1, May 1st. The DNR has not yet finalized their review of it, but that should be coming shortly. There are a number of people that actually review and approve, not just Caroline, but a board of people. They have been, so probably by next month I'll let you know about that. So they have been extracting the free product in riser pipes, mostly near where the spill occurred and one slightly over. So on a weekly basis, they've been going out and collecting, the oil that is at the top. And from April 10th to May 6th, they've only been able to get out 20 gallons of free product, and they will still continue to collect the oil on a weekly basis. But that's all the results we have so far. They're sending in periodic reports with that. They have done soil sampling in mid-April. They collected the soil samples around the main pipeline and around one of the pipes that goes into the building, and those showed no VOCs or PAHs. So that's a good thing. So it's indicating that there isn't a preferential pathway along that pipe. I believe they will still be needing to go further upstream of the site as well, but that's what those 4 samples have indicated. Let's see what else. Just a couple more things. They have submitted the calculations to determine the volume of contamination that was excavated. The DNR is still working on verifying that. They'll be doing those calculations too, but it seems like the procedures that they used, that type of concept, was what is typically done. But they will get the final numbers to make sure that was properly calculated. They will be submitting they'll be installing monitoring wells in mid-June. It was just a matter of coordinating with drillers to get out there. At the same time, they'll be putting in their soil vapor extraction well, and they'll be starting that pilot test somewhere in mid-summer. They did do another big excavation out there. It seems like quite a bit of soil was removed. They did not have the correct or the actual volumes, but it seemed like it was this square footage. The area was over 2,000 square feet, so it was a pretty aggressive excavation that they've done. It's just the final report has not been submitted yet. So once that is, I'll let you know what's happening there.
Laura, just a question on that. They excavated around the buried flanges, is that correct? At least that's what I saw when I drove by.
They did that earlier, and they've actually moved further east towards the stream.
Okay.
And
Do you know if when they excavated around the buried flanges, were they able to go in and recheck those flanges and retorque them or reseal them? Because I remember when we were in the meeting, in the open meeting, they hadn't done any maintenance, I don't believe, to those other buried
the
flanges?
other 3 ones, the
Yeah.
original one that leaked was repaired.
Right.
I will
Can we
find
check
that
on
out.
that? Because
Yes.
if they exposed them again, you'd surely hope that they went back and confirmed that the right parts were in the flange and, all that stuff, so.
I would think they should have done that.
We asked for it, I know, I did anyway, in the open meeting, that they make sure those flanges are repaired properly, and there's a schematic of the flange to see what's supposed to be in the flange, right?
Right,
Remember?
right.
So if they're exposed, they should hopefully give us a report on that.
It's not, I don't believe it's exposed anymore. I
Oh,
think
they've
they
already
backfilled
finished it?
those.
Oh, okay,
But I will confirm that they did that, because they should have done that.
yeah, okay.
Let me just make a note here. But yeah, that excavation was a little bit further east, and it looked like the eastern edge of that soil samples indicated that those were clean, but of course further towards the spill, there was contamination, so they removed quite a bit of that. There hasn't been the final report yet on that, though exactly how much was removed, but that will come, and I will make sure that we get those final numbers. Oh, I did write it down. There was 2,588 square feet excavated. The maximum depth was 13.5 feet, but I did not see anything in there that actually calculated the final volume. But I will make sure to get that once they submit it and look for that. If it doesn't come out by next month, I will question why it hasn't been received yet. And that's all I have for Enbridge, unless there was any other questions on that. I'll keep you posted when they get the monitoring wells installed and the soil vapor extraction system going. And so then not too much else going on that is directly related to the lake, but I thought I would share it with you anyway. The DOT is having a meeting here at the town hall on Tuesday, May 27th at 5:30. They are going to be talking about what they're going to be doing in 2027 on Highway 18 along Hope Lake Road. They'll be doing some work to try to improve the safety on there. They did do a study, traffic study, and they will not be reducing the speed limit there. I questioned them about that. Do they take into account the high school? Do they take into account all of the driveways? That didn't seem to
Is it
affect
45
this.
through there,
It's 55.
right there?
From the east end of the high school going east is 55. That's where it goes up. And there have been requests to reduce to 45, at least
To Wolf.
to
yeah.
Wolf.
The wall.
But they,
Yeah.
Bad idea.
yeah, Meg and I were at the traffic safety, and they did not agree to
Why?
lower the speed limit.
They said it wasn't warranted based on the fact that everybody was driving that speed limit and seemed to not be slowing down, which I think is a
It's just
stupid
ridiculous.
assessment method. They said that it was a higher threshold. When we raised the issue of the development going in over here, well, then they'll reassess at that point in time.
Right, right. But they will be talking about what they're doing on 18 by Hope Lake Road, and but the construction will not happen until 2027. They have put up some signs to try to help with the safety. I encourage everyone to come. I have made it clear to them that people may be disappointed that the speed limit is going to be reduced, and expect questions on that. That is their meeting. That we're just renting out a hall for that. We're not involved with it at all. But feel free to come. May 27th, 5:30. The solar farm that was talked about many years ago is finally going to be starting. Construction's going to start in July. It is not going to be within the watershed, but it is coming east of here. It'll go into the town of Jefferson as well. It'll be around G. That's where the border of Oakland and Jefferson are. So it'll be south of 18, around G, and then further east, it'll go all the way to like 89. And
Have you seen the map of it, Laura?
I have,
Is
but
it the same map that was brought to us originally back when Gene was chair?
I do not know. I don't know what was brought then.
Okay.
But it seemed like they were still working on where they're going to be staging, exactly where the arrays are going to be, so it was not finalized yet. There'll be additional pre-construction meetings to finalize that, and once they do that, I'll bring that here and to the board for that, but they wanted to get started on that. Safety's a big issue, there'll be trucks coming and going, so a lot of talk at the meeting was about that with the county, because they'll be using G18 Perry Road. The only real thing that the town will be doing is issuing a driveway permit on Perry Road. Otherwise, we'll just be bystanders, making sure that there's no debris in the road and everything is just correctly done, answering questions to the residents if needed. So I'll keep you posted on that once that starts. And then the last thing is the subdivision right across the street. They have started construction, quite a bit of it, and they are putting in their sanitary sewer. Right now, they do not have a final plat approval from the town or the county. They are going at their own risk in case something needed to change. The DNR will be involved. I've called them out to look at the erosion control plan. They have jurisdiction over that. I did talk to them. They may have come out yesterday. I did not get word, but he thought maybe he'd be able to go out yesterday afternoon. We want to make sure that all the erosion control is properly maintained so we don't have any sediment going down into the wetland. And that's about it for now with that. I mean, a lot of dirt being moved. So Leanne and I will be keeping track of that, and Jeff as well, our roads supervisor. He's going out there making sure things are looking good. So that's all I have. Quite a bit of stuff going around town. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask or contact me anytime with questions you have.
Solar is going to be a topic that we're going to hear more about, not just in the Cambridge and not just that, but there's a project that's going in down by Whitewater, 2,000 acres that they want to put in. Yeah, they're working on a joint development agreement with the county, and a bunch of that will be into Jefferson County. So, yeah,
That's a big one.
That is huge.
The total for the one coming here will be 640 acres. So it's quite a bit smaller. I asked what the distribution was between Jefferson and Cambridge, but since they haven't finalized exactly where all those arrays going, they didn't have that number for me. But we'll get tax revenue, like revenue share from that.
Is there a joint development agreement with the county for that?
Yes.
Okay. Because it was, I know that it hasn't come before the board yet, but I know they were talking about updating an ordinance to make sure that that joint development agreement, et cetera, was part of, we looked at
Right.
that. It has not come through the board yet. It would be nice if that ordinance did come through the board, because it just gives us a little bit more teeth of identifying what the process is for them to be communicating with the township and with the county about it, because otherwise they just go through the PSC and they get to do whatever they want to do. And, you know, we had concerns about making sure that there were measures in place of evaluate what the environment looks like before you start your building, so that we know when you are coming out of it that you haven't damaged groundwater with any of your battery storage, you know, that you've got all the erosion control measures in place, because we had problems out at J, that array out there that I think they call it crawfish.
There's crawfish.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about that during this meeting, that it sounds like that didn't go that well.
And they had a lot of erosion problems.
So we did talk about that, so we will be keeping an eye on that. The county will be, for this project, making sure that that is done properly. But the JDA was done in 2020. They already assessed the roads and videoed the roads, so that if they do damage, that they will have to repair or reimburse us for any roads that were, you know, need repairing after the project is over. But it does not talk about the environmental in that JDA.
Right, right. So,
Okay. We'll keep an eye on that and see how that moves forward. Anything else for Laura while we're still asking questions about that? Okay. Nothing else for Laura. We'll move on to Meg.
yeah, I don't have a lot that's particular to the district. I did want to mention that a lot of the things that we talked about that were in the governor's budget that were really, really good. The legislature the finance committee has stripped out of that budget. Those things include farmland preservation. They have to do with financial materials for the various different, staffing issues. They took out PFAS. They took out a whole bunch of different things for DAT cap, for DNR, et cetera. So a lot of the kinds of programs that we would see as being really important for maintaining the environment are no longer in that proposal. It is not finalized, which means if there are things that you feel strongly about, there is still time to make those appeals and to reach out. So, because things can go back in. I thought that when they got a little bit less of that imbalance in the legislature, they'd be talking to each other a little bit more, but unfortunately, that's not happening real well right now.
Is so who's lobbying for this stuff? The Towns Association or the Lake Association?
So everybody kind of was
DNR?
lobbying for this.
Okay.
Wisconsin Counties Association and Wisconsin Land and Water have been lobbying to try to get some of these funds in there for farmland preservation and for setting up ag enterprise areas. And you give money to farmers to some of it was support for grazing, so putting people into grazing and no-till and some of those different conservation practices that reduce the erosion. So all of those kinds of grants and stuff like that, those are funds that they've said aren't necessary. So yeah, and when it comes to like PFAS and things like that, that is another one that they have taken out of the budget. So there was funds in there for, I believe it was for remediation and monitoring, but I don't have those specifically in front of me. I thought I had them in the full thing I was looking at, but the details weren't there.
Okay. Is there anything the Lake District should be reaching out with a
Well,
letter or something?
I mean, I know the wake boat issue wasn't in there. We have an ordinance, but it would be helpful for everybody if there was something that was more statewide, and that is still on the radar for the legislature, at least for our delegation. Here, they know about it. They know it's an issue. It might come back up before the legislature, just so that you don't have all these piecemeal rules from lake to lake to lake, which raises confusion and annoyance among people. But I think that the fact that there's conservation practices in there for agricultural lands, those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that there's funding available for those folks, because they're not going to necessarily be able to afford to put those practices in without help and without the staffing at the county level to be able to give them guidance on what to put in. And that's everything from grass waterways to people who are doing like the Rock River Regenerative Grazers and the Jefferson County Soil Builders do a lot of projects to try to help people get grazing back in, instead of just mowing everything down. It holds the soil to better.
Okay. Well, if there's anything we do, let us know, and
Mhm.
thanks for the
Yep.
information. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, anything else for Meg? Any other questions? All right, thanks for that report, Meg. All right, let's move on to Lake Manager Report. Leanna Spencer.
Awesome, thank you. Felt like a really quick month this month. We did have our audit committee meeting. Jimmy helped me set that up, and a few volunteers from the community reviewed our books. Everything looked great. The one thing they asked us to change, we did change, and that was the petty cash. I just kept getting money from lake management plans and turtle signs, and I had more than $50, it turned out. So I gave it all to Debbie and did away with that, so no big deal there. I did get well, let's start that over. The contractor for the Willerup Cost Share project was able to come out to the project site and fix the rock riprap to DNR specs. So I was on site while he was doing that, gave him my advice, but reminded him I am not the regulatory agency, and a DNR, Aaron Cox specifically, needs to come out here and approve your project. She was able to get to the project site last week and issued a letter saying this project has been done now to DNR specs and is good through the DNR's eyes. So that's good for us. That means we can move forward in our process. So I will be meeting the landowner or the representative for the Willerup Bible Camp at the county courthouse sometime in the next couple weeks, get the easement signed and put it on their deed for 10 years that they have to protect this project, and then we can work on reimbursement. So that one's almost done. It's been a little while, but we're glad we were able to get that area fixed the way it should be. So everything is back on track there. The Sleepy Hollow cost share project, that one was one that recently entered into a critical habitat designation. So once we issued him that cost share, the CHD was approved a couple weeks later, so he needed a permit. So that process has been a little more extensive than we thought. He had some issues that he was dealing with, so he requested a 6-month extension. We were about halfway through the permit. Erin was able to get us her answers to some of the questions we had about it this week. So Jay and I should be filling that out by next week, and hopefully the permit's issued within 15 to 20 days, and the work can be done this summer. So that one is also on track. We collected all the native plants. I don't know if anybody showed up here during the week, but there was 1,000 native plants outside, and it was pretty great. Very few issues this year, which was awesome. Big thanks to Georgia. She's always really helpful in that. She sets everything up for me and organizes all the plants, and when I mess up, she tells me which plants I've put places. So that's always such a fun day for us, too, getting those native plants and seeing them go out into the watershed. It's always great. I love doing that. And I forgot to put it on here, but I did get another homeowner reach out to me from a homeowners association around the lake looking to do a potential cost share project. So I did send them the information, but they've already started getting bids. So I told them it's a very specific process. You have to follow it completely. So we'll hear back from them soon. Our Phragmites grant is almost done. I swear I keep saying this, but I promise it is. It's due June 1st anyway, so now I have a deadline. But I just had to get some of the financial parts worked out a little bit. You know, I have to break everybody's salary down by year and track it all and submit all those proof documents. So it's a little tedious, but we're almost done. The 2 grants that we applied for, always doing continuous tasks. That'll be ongoing through the summer because there's just so much to do. So also great. I also forgot to put on there that I did order aquatic invasive species tools for the sign down at the boat launch, because the sign's been up for a year, but we don't have the tools to help folks, like a grabber and a brush and things to assist them when they're removing aquatic invasive species off their boat at the boat launch. Jimmy's going to help me set them up. We're going to attach them to the sign because we're afraid that they might get stolen in a day or two. So we're working through that, and that'll be up by hopefully the end of this month. Inlet Stream Restoration Project, Jimmy and I had a great meeting with the Cambridge Community Foundation a couple Fridays ago. About 4 of their board members came, and a representative from Stan Tech came. We invited Sarah, obviously, to answer any logistical questions about the project, specifically like the PLET survey and the bank survey that she has more knowledge about. And we had a great discussion. They seemed really involved and interested and supportive of the project. And, you know, Lake Ripley Park and the Cambridge Community Foundation have done a lot of work there and invested a lot into our lake and our watershed. So we appreciate their support throughout this. I will have a better update hopefully next month of the Inlet Stream Restoration Project. They're finishing the PLET survey at the moment, and those results should be back to me in a week or so, and then we do have our bank survey scheduled. I already told y'all that last month, and that'll happen in June. Laura gave a really great update on the Enbridge spill. Thank you for that. I appreciate your help throughout this. I'm glad to have you on our team. She noted the major takeaways, and most of them are in my report here. You know, all groundwater, surface water, and soil samples will be analyzed for volatile organic compounds and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So that's good news. They took that recommendation from the DNR. An additional staff gauge will be installed at a downstream surface water sampling location and surveyed. That's good news. They accepted that recommendation. An additional surface water location will be added downstream. The screens of the shallow water table monitoring well shall intersect the water table. The screens of the deeper monitoring wells shall be 5 feet in length, and all monitoring wells will be sampled quarterly. Those are the 6 major takeaways that I took from that addendum.
And could I just add
Please.
that these, as far as like a quarterly sampling, the screen interval, and all of that is pretty standard that you would expect. So, that's, in case anybody's worried, is this what's normally done? It is, and it is the correct way to be installing those monitoring wells.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
So you both feel like they are responding adequately at this point?
Yes, I think it's been pretty aggressive with their timeline and removal of the soils, having done this for a long time, sometimes it does take longer for the initial site investigation to start. So I think it's starting pretty, in a good amount of time. It just takes time to get plans in place. But I think having the VOCs and the PAHs is really good. I think the amount of soil that was removed was really helpful. That's the best thing that they can do to get the contamination out of here.
Right.
So I thought, I didn't look at everything in great detail. It looks like they took as much soil as they could. Buildings and pipes are in the way. So I think that limits some of it, but I feel that so far the DNR's been really good and on top of it.
Yep, they know this is in Laura's expertise area, so the town is watching very closely, and they know the Lake Board's watching very closely.
Right.
So there's a lot of eyes on this, so
Yeah.
they are reacting, maybe more than normal, I don't know, but they are certainly, they know we're watching.
Well, and they would probably also realize that with that stream that close,
That close.
that the risk of anything happening there, it would blow up into something so much more expensive and so much more of a black eye for them. But I would say that the fact that they're reimbursing the Lake District as quickly as they are, you're not having to fight to get the money out of them for the testing is a good sign too.
Yeah, I think that is. I think having that extra monitoring location in the stream was really good. We'll know more once they start putting those monitoring wells in too. They did take out quite a bit of soil that's contaminated. We'll find out more when that final report. It does take time for reports to be written and everything to be gathered. So that time frame is not unusual to have a lag time between actual work and just a preliminary update versus the final report. Usually that takes some time to do. But they will have to follow all the state regulations that are in place. They can't not do that. But so far they don't seem to be, Enbridge does not seem to be, fighting about what needs to be done. I think they've done more than that's required as far as excavation.
Did they have any kind of estimate of how much is going to have to remain in place because it's under the buildings and the pipes?
I don't know that. That's a good question. I think that they should, I guess it would be hard to say how much is underneath the building when you can't look at it, but hopefully they can get a better idea. I think that is a good question to
It'd be nice if they could
ask.
do some kind of a barrier that would keep it from being able to move out from there.
Yes.
Whether or not it's some kind of a impermeable surface or something that absorbs and removes, that you can pump whatever out as it seeps. But, it would be nice if they were able to somehow insulate that area so that it doesn't continue to seep from under the
Right.
building outward.
Well, one of the items to help with the contamination that they can't reach under the building will be the soil vapor extraction. So they'll do the pilot test to see if this site is a good candidate for it. And most likely it will be based on the soils that are present. And then they'll have to, once they demonstrate that it's a good candidate, then they'll come up with a final plan of what to do, and that will help with that contamination underneath the building. But yeah, that is still a concern at all sites if there's
Because, I mean, they'll remove the soil, and then if it continues to wick
Right.
out from there, then
Yes.
they have to remove the soil again, you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, sorry, still me.
Try to keep it moving here.
Sorry. Second round of quarterly sample, it is scheduled for the first week of June. So I know we're going to be testing for VOCs, but since the addendum came out, I want to know if the district will also be testing for PAHs. And I think it's a good idea for us too, so I'm going to request that to Shane and see how that goes. We began designing a new cart barrier for the updated culvert at Park Road. Big thanks to Laura and Jimmy. You guys have been really tackling that for me, especially Jimmy. Big thanks to you. It was kind of a bounce around. You got to go to Jewel, who's got to go to McGuire, who's got to go to J&J Drainage, who needs the final plans, who needs this and that. And so it was a hot mess, but Jimmy's working through it, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
Let me know if they're not responsive, and I'll reach out as well.
Thanks, appreciate it. Laura and I have discussed the fireworks ordinance and the burn ordinance. Thank you for taking our opinion on that. The district appreciates it. Our spring ripples went out a little early. I didn't want them to come out so close together in the summer, so I wanted to try to get one more springy, and then one obviously before our annual meeting, so that'll be summer. So it got sent out yesterday. You'll see it in your mailboxes hopefully in the next couple days. Big thanks to Doug and Jimmy and Georgia. You guys are all instrumental in putting that together. Big thanks to Doug and his team. We appreciate y'all very much. It looks great. I love this edition. It has a cool little Meet Your Harvesters expo in it, so I think that's cool to like bring it back. Anyways, ordered candy and materials for the Memorial Day parade. If 20 pounds of candy isn't enough, then I don't know what we're gonna do, y'all. But that's how much I ordered, okay? 20 pounds, so. We did get the prairie burned. There were no issues. If you do walk it, you'll see a couple patches that didn't look like they burned as well as other areas. So I did call and ask about that. They're heavy on forbs and not as much as grasses, and grasses light a little better than forbs do. So we overseeded those areas with grass seed that we collected last fall. And in fact, the entire prairie that was burned was overseeded with native seeds that we collected, because that's good practice to do once you burn a prairie, is to overseed with native seeds. So thanks to Andrew for doing all that. Andrew's crushing it this month. He installed the water logger at Park Road. We had to order a new shuttle, a water shuttle, because that broke down. That's how we get the data off the loggers themselves. He collected May water quality samples. Those got sent to or dropped off at the state lab. Somebody mentioned it. Debbie mentioned that our flow meter stopped working, so I did have to send that in. Luckily, we were able to borrow the same exact kind from the county, so no biggie there. We collected our Citizen Lake Monitoring Network data. Jim Germain came out with us because the pontoon was acting a little faulty, so props to Jim for not letting us get stranded on the lake. All the 3 weed harvesters ended up going to our Aquarius seminar, and as I was at my Aquatic Plant Management Committee advisory meeting, Adam Hensel from Delavan Lake said, I send my harvesters to the Aquatic Plant ID workshop. And I thought, what a genius idea, duh. So I'm gonna send the 3 harvesters to the Aquatic Plant ID workshop, even though I think they know at least the invasives for sure. But over the years, they've grown to know the other plants as well. But a little deeper dive for them to understand the actual, pond weeds and milfoils, I think will be helpful for them. So I'm gonna send them there. Tom Hensel's going to remove our harvesting equipment on Monday. It'll be dropped off at the town hall here. Richard and Jim and Leo will come and get it all prepped for the Memorial Day Parade and for launching it, because once we participate in the Memorial Day Parade, the next day we launch it. So that's all set up. And like I just mentioned, I went to an Aquatic Plant Advisory Committee meeting for NR 107 and 109 state statutes. Those deal with chemical applications for aquatic plants as well as mechanical harvesting. So we reviewed permit fees and what the public notice requirements are, and should there be changes to chemical applications, should there be changes to mechanical harvesting. And it was really interesting. Half of us were chemical applicators and the other half were mechanical, and there were some DNR reps there too, but it's interesting to hear how different everybody's harvesting program is. So I think we all provided really great input, and we'll be having another meeting sometime in August. This process takes about 30 months, so I don't foresee any changes to our weed harvesting program happening, and the only big thing for us anyways is it's going to cost more money. The main reason that they're reviewing not the main reason, There's a lot of reasons, kind of like when we look at our bylaws and we update them, they're updating this because it hasn't been updated since the 1980s. But one of the reasons is the fees haven't changed since then either. And their aquatic plant management program has grown probably 100%. So they're trying to make the fees so that it covers their aquatic plant management program, the staffing, the programs, which makes sense. And it's not that much more money for folks to pay. And it might prevent some of the folks that are applying chemical applications in a scenario that maybe they don't necessarily need to, but they have the money to. It would prohibit or prevent them from wanting to apply as much. So that's all really interesting, and I'm glad I'm on that. And then I was going to give a brief update on Oakland Hills, but I think that Laura did that well for us, so I won't dive into it. Any questions for me?
Oakland Hills, the new name.
No, the preserve, what is
Oh,
it, the preserve
Yeah.
in,
Yes.
at Oakland, in Oakland?
I'm not
So
gonna
it's no
call it
longer
that.
Oakland Hills, they've renamed it the Preserve at
Preserve.
Oakland.
Which I'm fine
Yes.
with because I'm using Oakland Hills Farm as my name for publishing
that's fine.
purposes.
So you're the reason they,
Yeah, right, maybe.
so just so you know, yeah, it's no longer called Oakland Hills.
Right.
I may continue to call it that, just
It's-
because it's been on my brain for
I
so long.
wondered if you
Give
did
me
that
a
on
couple
purpose.
months. I
Well,
did
and
not.
if you do a search on Oakland Hills, there are a million of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's another reason
We will
probably.
probably
gonna call
have
it that,
future
too.
discussions on maybe re-identifying or better identifying maybe what we do too. So there's a clear separation. I don't know what that will be, but we don't want people to get confused with the preserve, you know. So we
Didn't
may.
they say that they were going to do some kind of signage? That was
They-
one of the things we raised when
said
she
they would
came
work
with
with
us.
us,
Subdivision on
And they
it
were
or
here
Yeah.
saying, adding the word subdivision, so, right, so there's no confusion. That was our biggest concern when we heard about the change at the last minute, because they threw it at you a day before the planning meeting, right?
Right, that just came up very quickly.
Right.
So, anyway, let's not get into that now, but, okay. Anything else for Leanna? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, great report. All right, new business. Let's move on to the loan payment. Like Debbie had mentioned last month, we wanted to talk about possibly doing something to the loan payment. Originally, just some history. Originally, we took a loan out with the intention of purchasing the Mankowski property. At the last moments of that deal, that fell through. We then quickly went into another possible acquisition, which was the Kipley acquisition, which is the lands here right next door. We went into
Was the church before Kipley?
well, it could have been.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
the
it was
church
Kipley, then the
after.
church.
I think you're
Okay.
right,
Yeah,
or somewhere in between.
it's all mumbled now.
So, yeah, so we actually went into negotiations with Kipley. We still had the loan, so we agreed as a board to keep it open in case the Kipley thing worked out. That came down to the last minute, and that didn't work out. He kind of took us for a ride there. So then we knew about the church property, so we did some offering on the church property, and the board decided to move away from that because of the costs. We again kept the loan there because of possible acquisitions that we knew that were coming, and that's why we kept that loan open. Thankfully, Debbie had got that money into CDs, so we were actually not losing any money other than the payments. We were still making the payments, obviously. But we're to a point where I'm not sure there's anything left we're trying to buy. And I don't know how long we want to keep this loan outstanding. We've paid off, well, Debbie will tell us in a minute here how much we paid off on it. Is it best just to pay off this loan now? And if something does come available for us, that we just go back and get another loan? One of the reasons we kept this loan open so long, because the interest rates were so low. 2.375?
375. 2.375.
2.375. So we got it at the very low part of the interest rates. So us and the board, and at the time thought it was no sense of paying it off because it was very low cost for us to keep.
Well, we were
plus
getting
over the last-
higher interest
And we were
on
getting
it,
more in
in the
you know,
CDs
in the
than-
CDs. So
but
Yeah.
now they're kind of, like I said, when you go long-term, it's like 2.5 if you,
Right.
unless you go a short-term CD.
And in the last 4 years, we almost had a couple properties, and
well, we
were,
came very close to using that money for what was intended
Right,
for.
that's what I mean.
Unfortunately, as you all know through this process, and I've learned too in the last 10, 12 years, is it's very hard to purchase property as a government entity because it takes so long. And we have to have the money available right now so we don't get outbid. Because we can't bid more than the value of the property, and that hasn't really been happening lately, as you know, with real estate markets. So I think future discussions need to be of the board. If there's something that's that valuable for us, we're just going to have to move fast. Otherwise, we just won't get it, and it'll be developed. Okay, questions?
Yeah, we at one point talked about doing something with the town here on this property. Is that off the,
Which property?
This property.
here, there
Remember
was a
the
building that was
went to
back here
Harmon
in the corner. We talked about doing something for,
And that's a good question. Those talks haven't gone any further, but me and Laura have had discussions at the town level about involving other entities, fire, EMS, and those things moving forward, and that could come up again.
Yeah, it may.
So yes, it's possible we could
the
look at
reason
that.
the reason I'm asking is that, you know, there's still that issue of storage of the equipment.
Yes.
Space and all
Yes.
those kinds of stuff to do the kinds of things that need to be done. And so if you retire the loans and then you turn around and you have that opportunity to do something, is that going to be a case of where, oh, now the interest rates are 8%, you know, and
Right.
you're not going to be able to get that kind of money coming
It's going to
back?
cost us a little more to do business if we go back and take out another loan in the current economy.
Right.
I
So
guess-
that, I mean,
I guess
that
it
was
would
kind of my
depend on the
question as
cost.
to where we're still looking at that. Is that something that's so pie in the sky?
No.
Plus,
it's
we
not.
also had in the negotiations with that other piece of property recently, whether or not there were any kind of opportunities to,
So we're still, okay, so we're still in negotiations with the other property off of Highway 12. Negotiations might be strong, a strong word, but we have sent a letter out with our interest, as you know, you guys approved the letter, and what our interest is in that property. Okay, we haven't received a no yet, so I would say that's not closed yet, but doesn't look favorable at the moment. I think that's probably why Debbie brought it up, was what should we do with this loan? If you guys want to keep the loan open, I'm fine, but we just need, I think it's a good time to have a revisit, and I think the board needs to make it clear what you want us to do with that money, if we want to continue that loan, in case something like this does come up, and we do have an opportunity to purchase.
when it was just more that if those are still goals of need, and if there is still something that's out there, if we retired that and then suddenly they go, oh, wow, we didn't realize how much big of a project or how expensive of a project this is, yeah, we'd like to go in with you on something. Then we're in that position of having to restart
Yeah.
and go through that whole process.
Right, and we can keep the loan in a CD, and we can still keep it going as we continue this process of properties that are very valuable to the Lake District. Yeah,
But it could end up like it's a wash, kind of, right now. And so, and we still do have other monies. So at this point, we owe, I made the payment this week, and so we owe $59,197.64. We budgeted another $9,064.79 for the rest of the year. So if we took $50,000 out of it, out of the CD, we could pay that off and not have any debt. And we still would have 150-some thousand in, 157,000, I think, in CDs at this point. Well, more than that. No, this is land acquisition money that, but some of that may not necessarily be for land acquisition. When we were doing the Mankowski, I have a spreadsheet where, like, I'm positive the Jane Jacobson Brown money was put in there for land acquisition, but I don't know that was the intent. Because they've given us money several times over the years.
well, the board decided to put it in there.
Right.
The intent was for her to give us the money to use as we saw fit. The
General
board-
operating.
Yeah, general, and the board decided to put it in.
And so there's some other monies in there that, you know, it's possible it could be used. Because at this point with the CD, there's $192,761 in this land acquisition spreadsheet account. But that includes the $100,000 loan,
So the
so,
loan
of
is-
which we owe the 50-some thousand.
So there's roughly 50+ thousand outstanding in the loan. That's what we're talking about today.
59,000.
59,000, so,
But we would only need to take 50,000, and which means, I believe it's like 163,000 that still would be available, that's our cash. That's in those CDs.
Right.
With the interest that's been
From other
accumulated.
donations, she's talking about other monies that came in, right?
Well, no, this would be, well, it would be the two CDs. Like, the one CD is the loan, and the other one is the restricted funds, of which some of that land acquisition money is. But there is also some above that, because I think if you go to the report, there's 130-some thousand in restricted funds. So some of those restricted funds are just in the checking account.
It's confusing, but it's all accounted for there.
So basically, we probably almost have $200,000 of our money, because we've been able to save, you know, by putting this money away. When I took over, or in the early days, they used to put money into the capital reserve land account. And then at the end of the year, they would move it into restricted funds. So in a way, that's what we've been doing with the loan. You know? So anyway, that was, because it's a wash now, I just don't know that you want to continue making payments on a loan that, you know, we can pay off.
Yeah. I mean, but if it turns out to be a land acquisition thing, $200,000 isn't going to go very far right now, when most houses, just a house on a quarter of an acre lot's going for $500,000.
Well, and the 100,000 isn't going to take us anywhere. This loan isn't going to take us anywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be
You
a
know,
down payment.
when we were looking at, Jimmy actually called the bank to see about getting a loan when we were trying to figure out about the Highway 12, and we would have had to take out another loan.
Right.
And so, you know, is it better to, at that time when you know what you need, to take out the loan? When I first started being treasurer, there's a treasurer workshop that I attended, and they said that we really shouldn't have been putting these funds, like savings from, you know, 952, and putting it in restricted funds. They said, really, you should take out a loan for whatever project you're doing, because otherwise, the people who are paying the taxes now may not get the benefit from whatever's going to happen. It should be the people who are currently in the district with a loan, rather than trying to save money for something like that. That was their opinion.
And ultimately, the taxpayers decide every time we make a decision like this anyway. So any other comments or anything we want to talk about the loan? Essentially is, do we want to keep the loan open and keep it available at a lower interest rate, or do we want to pay it off, and if something comes up, do we want to go get another loan? That's really what we need to know. What does the board think?
Well, the reality is we're going to have to take another loan regardless.
Right.
So I think the question, it answers itself.
Yeah. It doesn't, I agree with Doug, it doesn't seem necessary to have this loan if we need another loan anyway, so it's not helping us to act faster if something arises.
I mean, obviously, if the loan was big enough to cover an acquisition, I would be, you know, all for keeping it open at a low interest rate.
Right. At one time it was, but we've paid it off. We've been paying it down.
Well, that's a
Right.
good thing.
Right.
That's a
Right.
good
I mean,
thing,
we've
right.
got more money available,
Right.
so.
Right.
I don't see the gain in keeping it open.
No, me neither. It seems to make sense to pay it off, keep the money in the CDs, might as well keep making the money in the CDs while you reduce your expense on paying the loan.
Yeah.
Georgia, anything? Have any ideas?
Well, I was going to say, since the thing with the Highway 12 is still kind of, could we say pending?
I think pending is still maybe a strong word, but it is
Yeah.
that, yes.
That why wouldn't we want to?
Keep it available?
Because you're going to have to get another loan in addition to this one.
Yeah, but this part is at a lower rate.
It is, yeah.
So I guess,
It's a
you
low
know,
rate of interest, right? I
Seems
guess
like-
there's two
seems
ways of
like-
looking at it. We can justify to all the taxpayers that property that we're talking about on Highway 12 is not completely dead on us yet. That would be the only thing that we could really say at this point, to say we're still
Right.
in hope that maybe something happens there.
Yep.
Although the hope is slim, just be clear, but it's still possible that he may want to do something with the wetland portion of that property with us.
I mean, is this something that we can continue to revisit as time goes
Well,
on?
that's a
Because that was
good
only
question.
like last month,
That's a good
you
question.
know? Because they, you know, if they're still in the process of closing or whatever, you know, they may not be at that point where they're thinking about it yet because they're not boots on the ground and looking at the property. Where, you know, in July,
Right.
we might have a better picture.
We might, we very well might. I don't know.
And that, at that point, if it's like they've said, no, we're not interested, then let it go. But otherwise, having it at that lower rate
Yeah,
seems,
the board could decide to table it till a different date and make a decision at a later date. But I just want record of it, so we have
Yeah.
the tracking of what we're talking about. And, you know, Debbie's concern and others' concern is valid. You know, we just don't want things hanging out there without a reason,
right,
right? So we can explain it in the annual meeting if somebody says, what the hell, you know, what's going on here?
right. No, and I think that's, I mean, I think the tabling thing is just, it doesn't mean it's tabled forever. It would be a good idea to just like, to revisit it next month or the month after, when we've had a little bit more time to get a result out of those folks. Because even if you have to get a second loan, if one of them is only at 2.3%, then the other one is at 8, I'd like that 50,000 to be at 2.3%.
It's, yeah, you're.
Do you think it's
making-
reasonable by the annual meeting we'll know whether that's a dead topic or not? It's a few months
We pushed
out.
our lawyer this last week, was it early in the week, we called Adam again and said, hey, we want an update on that property, and he was gonna reach out, and we didn't hear back yet from him. So he probably did reach out, but I don't think he got an answer yet. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, we certainly can table it as a board and revisit it in July. And if we have any more interest or any more information in July, we'll put it back on the meeting again and make a decision in July or August. I mean, that's up to the board. I just wanna lay out all the options so everybody knows where we're at.
It's reasonable to wait and revisit it, I think, you know, with that argument that perhaps something will come up and perhaps they're just not ready yet to think about our proposal.
Do you need a motion?
Well, I think it'd be smart to have a motion to put it at least.
I would move to table this to be revisited by July.
Okay, so you want it on the July meeting?
Either
That's your
July or, I mean,
Well,
that
there
gives
is
us
not
kind of a
there is not
deadline.
a, August meeting is an annual meeting, so
Right.
we can't do any kind of business at that August meeting.
Right.
Right, no,
Has to
that's
be
why I
July.
said
So,
July. I mean,
yeah.
I was trying to decide between June and July, but
Oh.
June might not give us enough time.
July?
But July, I would
Okay.
say table it until July,
Okay, that's your motion?
yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to table the loan discussion until July meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Georgia? Okay, Georgia seconded. Any other discussion on the motion?
I would just mention that, you know, our budget will be or our budget will be finalized probably before the July meeting.
Well, the board will
then-
vote on the budget in the July
In the
meeting.
July
Right,
meeting, yeah.
and then the taxpayers are going to vote
In
on
August.
a budget that is clearly going to include a year's worth of payments on a
Correct.
loan.
Correct.
That's true,
The-
so maybe
So if we
June is
decide-
better.
If we decide to pay it off early, do we then take assuming that the budget's approved, we take whatever amount that is if we decide to pay it off?
Okay, so
and
what
just
I'll
pay it
do
off
then-
right away?
Here's
That's
the-
the only thing
Yeah.
my only objection.
Here's the
to it.
discussion. So on the agenda in July, I'll have this item on the agenda first. If the board decides to pay it off, then when we approve the budget in the next item, it will make the adjustment then. And then the taxpayers in August can decide if we're doing it all right or not right. But yeah, I think that's what we do. Good
And
point.
just point of interest, I will not be at the July meeting.
Okay.
I'm in Alaska.
Oh, you.
So,
I have to- And I'll just, as a point of interest,
You
I have
can't
to
call
leave
in.
that meeting no matter what by 10 a.m.
so
Okay.
what I'm saying is that if you're counting on me to do some of this figuring, you know, I'm not going to be here to be doing it.
Okay. We will work with all of us to get it figured out, but thank you for that. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so what I'm hearing the motion being is we're going to put this, we're going to table this until July to be on the agenda before the budget. And there was a second, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I-
Nays?
Nay.
One nay. Okay, motion passes, thank you. Okay, carp barrier. As we mentioned, me and Leanna have been working on this carp barrier thing. So when Park Road went in, they tore out the old culvert, which is what our carp barrier was attached to. We had permits for that. The new culvert is egg-shaped now and wider and not as tall, essentially. And now there's skirting on each end of the culvert. So we are not able to use our current carp gate that we've used in the past 4 years. We're not able to use the same carp gate. So we will not be able to have a carp gate installed this year because we just don't have the new one quoted yet. So I've been working with, like Lana had mentioned, all these different companies trying to figure out what the heck size it was, who bought it, what size, and how do we get something made that will work for us in this manner and will attach nicely to the current culvert. So I finally got to, I believe, a person who can custom make this to fit our culvert. I just don't have it. I thought we'd have a quote by now, but we just don't have it yet because I finalized those conversations literally on Friday. So I don't have anything to bring forward to the board as far as a cost for this yet, but I just wanted to have discussion to let the board know that we will not have a carp gate, at least that I know how to build, on this culvert this year. So all the work that we're going to do will have to go for the next season. And when I get a quote for the new construction of this carp gate, I will bring it back to the board for approval or not approval, assuming the board still wants to continue with the carp gate idea. Originally, this started from a motion way back 4 or 5 years ago as kind of a pilot program to see if it worked. It backs up the carp can't get through it. We have to go down and clean out the carp barrier every day when it's installed. It's installed when the water temperature hits 68, and it's removed when the water temperature hits 72. So there's a time frame of the water temperatures where it's installed and taken out.
Just out of curiosity,
Yes.
do you have any way of knowing if it's had an impact on the lake itself? Or is it just the poundage that you're removing every time you clean out the gate?
Well, we're not removing carp.
Oh, okay.
We remove the debris that gets caught in the carp gate every day.
Okay. I thought
So it
maybe
doesn't
that
back up the
the
water.
carp are building up against it. And you
The
can
only
get in there with
measure
a
that I know
shovel
of,
and-
the only measure that I know of is when I walk down there and I look at it, literally 20 to 50 to 100 are backed up during this time frame. So they cannot go up and spawn in their normal spawning areas.
Okay.
Visually, that's the measure that I've seen. I don't know if there's any scientific measuring. I don't
I'd
know.
have to look a little closer at the fishery data, because we do
Yeah.
have fishery data from 2020 and 2024, but the problem is they don't generally, the nets aren't designed to capture carp.
Okay.
So the pike nets capture these walleye and northern pike, but the carp aren't attracted to them as much. So we only caught, I think, 3 carp when I went out there with them just that one day of sampling. But I can look at the fishery data and let you know if there's scientific evidence of a decline. But like Jimmy said, we do see them, and we know that they're spawning in those slower moving wetlands that are a little west of our outlet because we've seen them there before. So preventing them from getting to those known breeding grounds stops them from laying
Yeah.
eggs. And they'll lay them in faster moving wetlands, which then just
Flush it out.
Exactly. And I also have a couple contacts that go down there and spearfish.
Okay.
And I don't know how much they take out, but I know that they do it, so.
Yeah.
It's minimal. I mean, the takeout's minimal
Yeah.
compared to what you see backed up. right?
Yeah, very likely.
It'd be fun to get down there, and just
It's
like,
amazing.
start flinging them onto the shore.
There's
I
about a week
know.
time frame where there's so many carp in there, you can't believe it.
Yeah, I wonder if we could do some kind of
Maybe.
like spearathon,
Yeah, there you go.
carpathon.
Whoever
right?
gets the biggest carp wins a prize.
Actually, quick digression, I was talking to Adam Hensel from Delavan Lake, and they did this with carp. They're charging $10 a carp for pulling out of there. They started at $4, went to $6, and now they're at 10, and they pulled out some crazy poundage, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to
So
ask
they're
them.
not charging, they're paying people?
Pardon me, paying people.
Okay.
Yeah, each carp you get $10.
Who pays it?
Well, it's a sanitary district.
Well,
I know.
Do you
So I'll
need a
look in-
permit for this, a DNR to spearfish?
I doubt it because they're invasive.
They're invasive, and if you actually catch a carp, you're required by law to not allow it back into the water. You have to put it up on the bank and either kill it or whatever.
But you would be fishing and have a fishing license.
I don't think you need a
I don't
fishing
think you
license
need
for
one for the
carp.
carp.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think that you do.
Because
to
you're
spear
casting
them.
a line, maybe you need a fishing license, but if you're spearing them, I'm not
Right,
sure
not
there's something.
spearing them,
Yeah.
right?
Anyway, so that's my update on carp barrier. I know
If
I
you
worked
use
with
a
Laura a little
shovel.
bit. And yeah,
So there was some grant money that helped put together the
Cambridge
original.
Community Foundation.
Yeah.
There is a grant, and I told Jimmy this, if we wait until November for the surface water grant, which we might, this specially designed carp barrier could cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000. And it has to be specifically designed for those 2-inch by 2-inch holes to allow those smaller fish to get downstream to lay their eggs. So there is a lake protection grant that Green Lake Association applied for and received to build their carp management structure. So it is a possibility to get grant money for it. And I'm sure there's other grants besides the surface water grant, but that's the one
Right.
I know off the top of my head.
so why I wanted to bring this forward, one, to inform everyone that we're not going to have it this year, but if we want to utilize Leanna's time to apply for another grant, because it is going to cost us money to redesign this thing, and it's probably going to be significant. It's probably going to be thousands. So if the board, and that would be the motion I would want today, do we want to pursue this? And I'll get a quote and I'll bring it to the board once we get it, but do we want to pursue this further?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I want the board to know, right? Georgia?
I'm the one who blurted yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Anybody
we
else have
want.
any thoughts on it?
Meg?
I think we should.
No, I think if you pursue it, you can at least find out how much it's going to cost.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would say, yeah, pursue it, because if it's only like 500 to 1,000, that's, I think, well worth the value. I mean, if it comes back in the, 5 figures, then it really needs to be looked at.
Yeah. It'll be thousands to build this grate, but yeah. Everybody in favor of continuing this process moving forward?
Yes.
Anybody want to make a motion? Or?
I'll make a motion to pursue the cost for a custom grate for a carp barrier grate
Okay.
at the outlet.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Georgia seconded. Any other discussion on the carp barrier? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? All right, motion passes. Thank you, and we will keep working that process through. Okay, moving on, new business here, Lake Manager Evaluation Handout. Okay, for the new board members, every year we do a Lake Manager Evaluation form that we've created over the years. I hand that out in this meeting, and then I would ask you to return this survey. This is for Leanna's evaluation, so when we get to the budget, we have some things to go off of to look at what we're looking at for her raise. And we take her merit raise plus the COLA, and we analyze that and we put it into our budget, which needs to be done during our budgeting process. So we will hand these out today. I need you guys to return these forms to me, not to the Lake Board office, not to Leanna, to me. I will collect them all. I will put a spreadsheet together, and I will let everyone review that when we get to that point in the meetings. So you'll be able to see the compiled survey.
So at the June meeting, we will be meeting in closed session to decide
Correct.
salary.
So we'll do the salary, well, yeah, it'll be all part of the
That'll be
budget
when we
process.
deduct like
Well, it's not-
$5,000. No, I'm just kidding.
That isn't part of the, but, I mean,
Well, it's
salary is different than
Part-
the budget
it goes
process.
into the budget, right.
Because the budget committee would have to do,
We haven't, no?
I don't know,
I need one more.
is that 2 or is that 1?
How many you got down there?
2.
Okay, you stuck together?
There.
Okay, cool,
I did 7.
perfect. Okay, so again, take this home, fill it out, get it back to me. I can pick it up, or you can drop it off at the town hall, and I'll get it from there. Okay, any questions about the survey? All right, let's move on to budget requests and
Do you
discussion.
have your address on here?
It does not have Jimmy's address on there.
Can we just put this in your
You can
town
set it in my town hall box if
box?
you want,
I'll send you
Okay.
his address.
or you
Okay.
can mail it.
It's also
or-
online.
Can it go in the Dropbox addressed to you?
No.
No?
Why don't you just drop it off to Susan sometime?
Okay.
That'd be best, so it doesn't.
You know what, actually, yeah.
I mean, the Dropbox is
Let me
secure
know
if
and I
someone
won't
checks
check
it.
the Dropbox that day.
Just let us know if you drop it off so we can grab it out of there.
Right.
You can do
I'll
that.
let Susan know that
Okay.
she may find it in
Yep,
there.
there'll be them
Cool
coming
beans.
in. So I guess one thing to talk about budget that we just brought up is if we decide to go forward with the cart barrier and I can get a cost, that has to be budgeted. So we're talking about budgets now, and we're going to be doing budgeting. We should probably put a line item in there for this expense somewhere.
And
So-
what, and does that go under general lake management?
Yes.
That we're,
But if you're getting, and it all depends on if the grants are possible or not.
Yep.
Also.
yeah, and we won't know.
We
if
should
grants are-
budget for it,
Yeah,
just
we're
in
going to have
case,
to
I
budget for it
guess.
because we don't know if we're going to get a grant, right? So,
Because I put this together and we had talked about raising the legal, so you can see where we are with that. And then repairs, and we had to spend $905 for a truck repair that was paid in May. So when you're looking at the total amount that we've spent and what we budgeted, you can see that Meg was right about that already, because now that you have more vehicles, you're gonna be spending more for repairs.
Yep.
So, but I thought this might be helpful to see, and Doug had mentioned the postage. With the Ripple postage that you got the check today, it comes to $27,2262 that we've spent so far this year, and we budgeted $5,000. So we should be okay there, I think. 'Cause
Good.
there's one
The
more
price is
Ripples.
going up, isn't it? Or is it not for bulk?
It's for everything.
Okay.
They're going to raise first class again, shipping rates, everything. And that's going to be, it hasn't been approved yet, but if it goes into effect, it'll be July 13th. So it'll be effective.
Right, when we're mailing.
Yeah,
again.
I don't, there's no end in sight for this. I mean, they've gotten two a year for the last like 3 or 4 years. So.
Okay.
So 575, I think, of this was for the postage for the Ripples that I just paid today.
And we don't pay for the paper or anything like that?
No, I put that under, I actually donate all that.
Okay.
So I don't know that, I mean, I think I don't know that we're going to have to budget more than the 5,000 based on, because we have one more Ripples. And even if it went up for the 3 that are done.
Yeah,
things
you're
that
talking
are
about
in there-
$600 a postage.
The things
each
that are
time.
in there are the postage for the Ripples, as long as Doug's able to continue to donate it, and the website. Now, we had to pay an extra fee for the website because there was some change that they made, and so I don't know that that would be as high going forward either.
Okay.
So
So
those are
we're-
the things that were brought up so far.
Yep.
I thought it helps to look at where
Mhm.
where it is, and
We'll be meeting shortly, yeah.
And
I
is
have to
it
put the budget-
reasonable to leave, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, I was just going to say, is it reasonable to leave legal at only 3,000?
Probably not, but
No.
I've asked to raise it. So
oh,
we're
no,
gonna-
yeah, he already mentioned raising
Yeah,
it.
so I have it
Okay.
on our radar
Okay,
to probably put a few more thousand in the legal. I mean, again, that's one of those things you just don't know. We had to do all the revisions of all the bylaws this last year, and that cost a lot of money, and then if
We've
we're-
spent a lot of money on land acquisition.
Land acquisition
Legal
stuff,
fees for
and-
land acquisition.
Yeah, so,
And that's what I raised the question, is it possible to use some of those land acquisition funds for legal fees? Because that's part of land acquisition, rather than necessarily legal fees for us.
right.
I don't know in the long run if it's going to make much of a difference, but I was wondering, at the audit committee brought up, well, what are you going to do with this loan money? Or what are you going to do with these restricted funds if you don't buy any more land? And I'm like, so I was like, well, maybe we could spend some of it for the legal fees that we keep incurring for. The last bill, it was all broken down, and most of it was for the land acquisition, even though we don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah, well, it sounds reasonable to me that we could. I mean, it's for land acquisition, it's not for any particular item in it, but in its entirety.
yeah. And we can look at that during the budget, yeah.
Yeah, we could use that extra funds
Well, I
for
mean, that would maybe have to
gates
be
and-
you might
Agenda
have to,
item?
it might have to be a budget item or a
Agenda item.
agenda
Line
item,
item.
because the board would have to vote to move those restricted funds, to use, I would think.
Over.
Anytime you're
Right.
using restricted funds, it would have to be a motion, I would think.
Right. We certainly can look at all that.
But it was just a thought that,
That's a good thought.
And it looks like our legal notices cost has gone down. Is that based on the voting that we did?
It
to
isn't,
change
it isn't that it's gone down, it's because we haven't had the expensive one yet.
that? Oh, okay.
The annual meeting
The one
one
that we have to post, yeah.
is very expensive, but we have made the changes to the bylaws to maybe reduce that cost. So until that comes, we can't say exactly
we
where
don't know
we're
how
gonna
much
be.
it's gonna cost.
Because the motion was that we would just put the notice that they could come and look at it. Like, it's gonna be published once, I think, or whatever, but,
Yeah.
but that was, the majority of the money was spent in order to publish the budget and the whole annual meeting stuff in the newspaper.
Are there any other things the board sees that we want to include in budget talks that we're going to have shortly? This is the second time we brought this up in meetings, so is there anything else we need to bring to our attention? The budget committee will meet, we'll bring a recommendation back to the board, and we'll have another shot at it, but this is kind of preliminary, so. Okay. Thanks, Debbie, for putting all that together. We'll start working
Oh,
on.
the one thing I was gonna also say is, because the insurance, we budgeted 8,078, and we've got the final bill. Like, I mean, I know we're still looking at another
Right.
estimate,
Yep.
but the bill, they said it was gonna be 87, and it actually came in at 8112. So we're gonna be like within $34.
Good,
of
good.
What we budgeted.
Good,
So that was, I thought, good news.
good, yep, thank you. Okay, so keep that in mind, and we will continue working the budget process, so. All right, anything else on the budget? All right. Announcements, any announcements today? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Deb's made a motion, is there a second?
No, Meg? Meg
I
made a
Or
motion.
Meg made it? Okay,
Yeah, okay.
Meg made a motion, is there a second?
I will.
Debbie seconded, all right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone, great meeting.
And